Sometimes, destiny doesn't knock on your door. Sometimes, it steps out of a black SUV in the middle of a storm and calls you something you never imagined becoming. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments below, and if you believe courage and dignity can survive even the darkest nights, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more unforgettable stories. Now, back to Michael Park. Rain pounded relentlessly against Interstate 90, turning the empty highway outside Chicago into a shimmering ribbon of black asphalt beneath flashes of distant lightning. The storm had chased every ordinary traveler off the road hours ago, leaving only scattered headlights fading into the endless darkness. Naomi Carter stood beside her disabled sedan, wrapping both arms around herself as cold rain soaked through her denim jacket. Steam curled from beneath the raised hood before disappearing into the wind. She had already tried calling roadside assistance 6 times. No signal. Her phone battery had dropped to 12%. She glanced toward the silent highway, hoping another vehicle would appear. Nothing. The loneliness felt almost physical. Naomi wasn't the kind of woman who frightened easily. As a freelance travel photographer, she had crossed deserted highways, forgotten mining towns, and isolated mountain roads alone. She believed every destination carried a story waiting to be discovered. Tonight, however, every instinct whispered that she shouldn't have stopped here. Then she saw them. 4 pairs of white headlights emerged through the curtain of rain, perfectly aligned as they approached with unnatural precision. They weren't weaving through the storm like ordinary traffic. They moved together. Slowly. Purposefully. The convoy surrounded her stranded car before stopping in complete silence. The engines continued idling. No one stepped out. For a long moment, the only sound was rain striking metal. Then the rear door of the center SUV opened. A tall man dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit stepped onto the wet pavement. His polished shoes reflected the flashing highway lights as though the storm itself refused to touch him. His posture remained calm, almost impossibly composed, while several men in dark coats quietly positioned themselves behind him without exchanging a single word. Power never needed to introduce itself. It simply arrived. Naomi instinctively took one cautious step backward. "I'm sorry," she called through the rain. "If you're looking for someone else, my car just broke down." The man ignored the explanation. Instead, he studied her face with unsettling patience. Sharp blue-gray eyes. Controlled breathing. Not a trace of uncertainty. He looked less like someone meeting a stranger, and more like someone confirming a prediction. One of the men beside him leaned forward. "It's her." The stranger gave the slightest nod. He walked until only a few feet separated them. Naomi forced herself not to look away. "Can I help you?" she asked. His answer came quietly. Clear enough to cut through the storm. "You're my wife now." Time seemed to stop. Naomi stared at him, certain she had misheard. "What?" No smile crossed his face. No explanation followed. Only silence. The rain continued falling between them. Behind the stranger, every member of the convoy remained perfectly still, as though the impossible sentence had been expected all along. Naomi's pulse quickened. "I don't know who you are. My name is Michael Park." His voice carried neither arrogance nor apology. "You don't need to know anything else." She almost laughed from disbelief. "You're insane." For the first time, Michael glanced beyond her shoulder. His expression changed. Only slightly. Enough for the men behind him to reach beneath their jackets. Naomi turned instinctively. Far down the highway, another convoy appeared. Unlike Michael's vehicles, these SUVs accelerated without slowing, their headlights slicing violently through the rain as they raced toward them. Michael looked back at Naomi. For the first time, urgency entered his otherwise calm eyes. "We're out of time." Before she could react, he stepped closer and spoke with absolute certainty. If they reach you first. He paused just long enough for the words to settle. You won't live long enough to ask who I am. And somewhere beyond the storm, unseen engines roared louder as the hunt finally reached the woman who had no idea why an entire criminal empire suddenly wanted her dead. Naomi Carter had always believed that the most dangerous photographs were the ones people refused to look at. She never imagined the most dangerous one would be the picture she never meant to take. The approaching convoy grew larger in Michael Park's rearview mirror as one of his bodyguards quietly closed the SUV door behind Naomi. She didn't resist. Not because she trusted him. Because every instinct told her the men racing toward the highway weren't coming to help. Michael took the seat beside her. The convoy accelerated without another word. Rain lashed against the armored windows while the engines roared through the darkness. Naomi finally broke the silence. You still haven't explained why you called me your wife. Michael looked straight ahead. I will. When? When you're alive long enough to hear it. She stared at him in disbelief. You really expect me to accept that answer? No. His calm voice never changed. I only expect you to stay inside this vehicle. Naomi folded her arms. I've never seen you before tonight. I know. Then why me? Michael remained silent. His security chief, David Lee, glanced into the side mirror. Boss. They're closing. Michael nodded once. Take Route 9. The convoy abruptly exited the interstate, disappearing onto a narrow service road surrounded by abandoned warehouses and dense trees. Only then did Michael finally speak. You were in Gary yesterday. Naomi's eyes widened. How do you know that? You photographed the old Riverside steel plant. Her heartbeat quickened. You've been following me? No. I've been following someone else. His answer only deepened the mystery. 24 hours earlier. Golden evening sunlight spilled across the rusted skeleton of Riverside steel plant. Naomi wandered alone between towering steel beams with her camera hanging around her neck. She loved forgotten places because they reminded her that beauty could survive even after people abandoned it. She adjusted her lens toward a shattered warehouse window. Perfect light. Perfect composition. She pressed the shutter. Click. Then she heard engines. 5 luxury black sedans rolled into the factory yard. Curiosity replaced caution. She slipped behind a crumbling concrete pillar. Her camera continued recording. Men wearing expensive tailored suits stepped from the vehicles. No greetings. No smiles. Only tense silence. Another convoy arrived moments later. Black cases exchanged hands. Someone raised his voice. A single gunshot shattered the quiet. Everything exploded into violence. Men scattered for cover. Bullets tore through broken windows. Concrete dust filled the air. Naomi instinctively remained hidden. Her finger never left the shutter button. She wasn't documenting history. She was trying not to panic. 15 endless minutes later. The surviving vehicles disappeared. Silence returned. Certain the nightmare had ended, Naomi hurried back to her car and drove away, convincing herself she had simply witnessed a criminal dispute she wanted no part of. Back inside the SUV, Michael slowly removed a small tablet from the seat beside him. He touched the screen once. A photograph appeared. The same image Naomi had taken inside the warehouse. She frowned. That's impossible. Michael handed her the tablet. Look closer. At first she saw only shattered glass and rusted steel. Then her eyes drifted toward the reflection inside the broken window. A man stood nearly hidden behind everyone else. Older. Expressionless. Watching the meeting without speaking. She had never noticed him before. Who is he? Michael's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The one man no camera was ever supposed to capture. Naomi looked back at the photograph. I don't understand. You don't need to. I think I do. Michael finally turned toward her. That reflection confirms something every major criminal organization in Chicago has spent years trying to prove. He paused. Chairman Han is alive. The name meant nothing to Naomi. But every bodyguard inside the SUV exchanged uneasy glances. David Lee quietly spoke into his radio. Visual. Everyone looked forward. The enemy convoy had found them again. This time, the vehicles weren't trying to overtake them. They were herding Michael's convoy toward an isolated bridge where escape would become impossible. And for the first time that night, even Michael Park realized someone else had anticipated every move he intended to make. The most dangerous traps are never built with walls. They are built with certainty. The moment Michael Park realized the convoy was no longer chasing them but guiding them, he understood someone had spent weeks predicting every decision he would make. Rain hammered against the armored SUVs as David Lee tightened his grip on the steering wheel. They've blocked the north exit, he reported through the radio. Another voice answered immediately. South access too. Michael's eyes remained fixed on the narrow bridge stretching across the rain-swollen river ahead. Concrete barriers lined both sides. No room to turn around. No alternate route. Whoever planned this knew exactly where they wanted him. Stop the convoy, Michael ordered. David looked into the mirror. Boss, we'll be exposed. We already are. The lead SUV braked hard. One after another, the remaining vehicles stopped behind it. For several long seconds. Nothing happened. Only rain. Only darkness. Only engines quietly idling beneath the storm. Naomi looked at Michael. I thought they were chasing us. They are. Then why did we stop? Because they're waiting for us to cross. She frowned. I don't understand. Michael calmly removed a folded city map from the seat beside him. He spread it across his lap. This bridge is the only elevated road for 3 miles. His finger traced the river. If we enter. He pointed toward the opposite bank. They seal both exits. And then? No witnesses. Naomi felt her stomach tighten. So what do we do? Michael folded the map again. We disappear. David blinked. Boss. Michael reached for the radio. All units. Blackout protocol. The response came instantly. Confirmed. Within seconds every SUV switched off its headlights simultaneously. The highway disappeared into complete darkness. Even Naomi instinctively held her breath. Michael opened his door. Cold rain rushed inside. What are you doing? We're leaving the vehicles. She stared at him. In the middle of nowhere. They're tracking the convoy. They're not tracking us. Before she could object, Michael stepped into the storm. David opened Naomi's door. We have to move. I can't even see. You won't need to. He handed her a small flashlight. Don't turn it on. She looked at him in disbelief. Then why give it to me? In case he tells you. They hurried down a narrow maintenance path beneath the bridge, hidden behind massive concrete support columns. Rainwater rushed through the drainage channels beneath their feet. The roar of the river drowned out almost every other sound. Michael walked first. His pace remained steady. Unhurried. As though he had memorized every inch of the terrain years before. Naomi struggled to keep up. You've been here before. Many times. You planned this? No. I prepared for it. Another difference she didn't fully understand. Behind them. The silence shattered. Headlights exploded across the bridge above. Engines screamed. Doors slammed. Dozens of armed men spread across the abandoned roadway. Someone shouted. "They're empty." Another furious voice echoed through the rain. "Find Park." Michael never looked back. Instead he guided Naomi through a rusted steel gate leading into an abandoned flood control tunnel beneath the bridge. The air became colder. Damp concrete reflected the faint emergency lights mounted along the ceiling. Naomi finally caught up beside him. "Who are these people?" Michael answered without slowing. "They don't belong to Chairman Han." She stopped walking. "What? If they did?" His expression hardened. "They would have killed us already." The realization hit Naomi instantly. "There are two groups." Michael nodded. "At least." David's radio crackled violently. "Boss." Static. Then another voice. Panicked. "They're inside our communications." Michael froze. For the first time since Naomi had met him. His calm disappeared. Only for a heartbeat. Long enough. Someone had hacked the Park family's encrypted network before tonight even began. This wasn't an ambush. It was an operation planned from inside his own organization. Michael slowly turned toward David. His next words were barely above a whisper. "We have a traitor." And somewhere inside the dark tunnel ahead, a single pair of footsteps echoed back toward them. Someone was already waiting. The enemy outside could be defeated with weapons. The enemy hiding beside you could destroy everything without firing a single shot. As Michael Park stared into the darkness of the flood control tunnel, he realized the second kind had already made the first possible. The echo of footsteps grew louder. Slow. Measured. Unhurried. Water dripped steadily from the concrete ceiling, each drop amplifying the silence surrounding the narrow tunnel. Emergency lights flickered every few yards, bathing the passage in dim amber flashes before surrendering once again to shadow. David Lee instinctively stepped in front of Naomi. His pistol rose. "Show yourself." No answer. Only another footstep. Michael calmly extended one hand. "Hold." David lowered the weapon without hesitation. Naomi looked from one man to the other. "Why aren't you shooting?" Michael never took his eyes off the darkness. "Because whoever is walking toward us wants us to panic." The footsteps stopped. Silence returned. Then a familiar voice echoed through the tunnel. "Boss." A lone man emerged beneath the flickering light. Black tactical jacket. Rain-soaked hair. One hand raised to show he carried no weapon. Naomi noticed something immediately. Every member of Michael's team relaxed except Michael himself. The newcomer bowed respectfully. "Miho Choi." David frowned. "What are you doing here?" "I intercepted one of Han's couriers." He reached into his pocket slowly. David immediately tensed again. The man removed only a small encrypted radio. "I thought you should hear this." Michael accepted the device. Static filled the tunnel. Then a voice. Cold. Calm. Unfamiliar. "Park has changed routes." Another voice answered. "It doesn't matter. We still have the woman." The transmission ended. Naomi frowned. "They're talking about me." Michael nodded once. "No." He looked toward Miho. "They're talking to someone inside my family." The tunnel became perfectly still. Miho's expression hardened. "I checked every communication relay. There was only one unauthorized transmission." David's voice dropped. "From where?" Miho hesitated. "Inside the estate." Naomi looked at Michael. "You mean someone in your own house betrayed you?" Michael didn't answer immediately. Instead, he quietly examined the radio before handing it back. "The betrayal started long before tonight. Another rumble echoed through the tunnel. Not footsteps. Engines. Several vehicles had stopped directly above them on the bridge. David checked his watch. They found the convoy. Michael nodded. They'll realize we're gone in less than 5 minutes. Naomi folded her arms against the cold. So what's the plan now? For the moment. Michael looked toward the opposite end of the tunnel. We keep walking. The passage gradually widened until it opened into an abandoned municipal maintenance station buried beneath the riverbank. Old control panels lined the walls. Dust-covered monitors. Broken pipes. Rusting generators. Everything suggested the place had been forgotten years ago. Naomi slowly turned in a circle. You've hidden here before. Michael gave a faint nod. My father built this safe route 20 years ago. She studied him carefully. You always have another escape. No. His answer surprised her. I always prepare for failure. Before she could respond, Miho approached quietly. Boss. Michael looked up. We found something else inside the intercepted files. What? Miho handed him a waterproof envelope recovered from beneath his jacket. Michael opened it. Inside rested a single photograph. Not of Chairman Han. Not of Naomi. A much younger Michael stood beside another man, both smiling outside a university campus nearly 15 years earlier. Naomi noticed the second man's face immediately. Who's that? Michael's expression changed for the first time since entering the tunnel. Regret. Pure and unmistakable. My best friend. He paused. The man I believe died 11 years ago. Naomi looked from the photograph to Michael. Then back again. What does this have to do with us? Michael slowly turned the picture over. On the back, only 6 handwritten words appeared. You never buried the right man. The color drained from David Lee's face. Boss. He barely managed to whisper. Chairman Han isn't the mastermind. Michael folded the photograph with trembling precision. No. His voice was almost inaudible. He never was. Somewhere inside the darkness beyond the maintenance station, another hidden door slowly unlocked from the outside. Someone else had arrived. And this time, Michael already feared he knew exactly who it was. Some prisons are built from steel. Others are built from promises. As the hidden door slowly creaked open inside the abandoned maintenance station, Naomi Carter realized she had crossed into a world where trust was rarer than freedom. Every weapon in the room turned toward the doorway. The heavy metal door swung inward. An elderly man stepped through alone. No bodyguards. No visible weapon. Only a charcoal overcoat and a polished wooden cane that echoed softly against the concrete floor. David Lee narrowed his eyes. I know him. Michael remained perfectly still. So do I. The man stopped several feet away and smiled with quiet confidence. It has been a long time, Michael. Naomi studied the stranger. He looked nothing like the ruthless crime boss she had imagined. His silver hair was neatly combed. His posture remained elegant despite his age. His voice carried the calm of someone accustomed to being obeyed. You expected Chairman Han, the old man said. I suppose disappointment is inevitable. Michael's expression never changed. Who are you? The stranger smiled. A friend your father trusted. Silence. Then Michael answered. My father is dead. Yes. The old man's eyes softened. And that is precisely why we are standing here. Naomi looked between them, unable to understand. You know each other? Michael ignored the question. What do you want? The man slowly reached into his coat. David immediately raised his pistol. Don't. The stranger stopped. He withdrew only a worn leather wallet and placed it gently on an old control console. Inside was a faded photograph. A much younger Michael. His father. And the same elderly man standing beside them both. They were smiling. Not posing for business. For family. Naomi whispered. That's impossible. Michael stared at the photograph for several silent seconds. My father never mentioned you. He couldn't. The old man sighed. Keeping my name hidden kept you alive. Before anyone could respond, another burst of radio static filled the room. One of Michael's security teams. Boss. We've lost contact with the estate. Another voice interrupted. Unknown teams have entered the property. David looked toward Michael. They're attacking the house. Michael's jaw tightened. My grandmother. They're evacuating her now. The transmission cut off. The room fell silent again. The elderly stranger looked directly at Michael. They aren't looking for your family. They're looking for her. His eyes shifted toward Naomi. She instinctively stepped backward. I don't even know these people. You don't need to. The old man spoke gently. The photograph you took has already become larger than the truth itself. Naomi frowned. What does that mean? It means powerful men no longer care what you actually know. They only care what everyone believes you know. The words settled heavily over the room. Michael finally looked at Naomi. For the first time, there was no distance in his voice. I should never have let you leave that warehouse. She met his eyes. So you really were there? Yes. I thought you were just another bystander. I was protecting another operation. He paused. I made the wrong choice. There was no excuse. No attempt to defend himself. Only regret. Real regret. Naomi searched his face. The feared mafia boss wasn't asking for forgiveness. He wasn't asking for understanding. He was simply telling the truth. The elderly man quietly closed the wallet. Your father once told me something. Michael remained silent. He said that one day, power would force you to choose between protecting your empire. The old man glanced toward Naomi. Or protecting one innocent life. Another long silence filled the abandoned station. Finally, Michael stepped toward Naomi. He reached into his inside pocket and removed a folded document. He handed it to her. She unfolded it carefully. It was a temporary legal identity package prepared. Under the name. Naomi Park. She looked up in disbelief. What is this? Michael answered without hesitation. The only name that might keep you alive. Before Naomi could speak again, the lights inside the maintenance station suddenly went dark. A single gunshot echoed somewhere beyond the steel door. Then came another. Someone had found them. And this time, there would be nowhere left to hide. The people the world feared most were rarely the ones carrying guns. They were the ones capable of making impossible choices without letting anyone see the cost. As the maintenance station disappeared into darkness, Naomi Carter finally understood that Michael Park had been carrying that burden long before she ever stepped onto the highway. The emergency lights flickered back to life one by one. Dim, unsteady. Just enough to reveal drifting dust and concrete walls stained by decades of moisture. Nobody moved. The echo of the gunshot still lingered through the underground chamber. David Lee quietly motioned two men toward the steel entrance. Check the corridor. The guards disappeared into the darkness with disciplined silence. Naomi looked down at the temporary identification still resting in her hands. Naomi Park. The unfamiliar surname felt heavier than the paper itself. She folded it carefully. I never asked for this. Michael stood only a few feet away. I know. You changed my identity. I changed your chances. She searched his face. You keep making decisions for me. His expression remained calm. And every one of them has kept you alive. For the first time, Naomi didn't answer immediately. She wanted to argue. Instead, she found herself remembering the empty highway, the convoy, the bridge, the tunnel, and the men who seemed willing to kill strangers over a single photograph. None of it would have existed if Michael had simply walked away that night. A guard returned at a hurried pace. Boss. The corridor is clear. No bodies. No shooters. David frowned. Then who fired? No one had an answer. The elderly man quietly adjusted his overcoat. A warning. Michael looked toward him. From whom? The old man smiled faintly. Someone reminding you that they can reach you whenever they choose. Silence settled over the room once again. Michael slowly turned toward Naomi. We're leaving. Where? My estate. She stared at him. You just said it was under attack. It was. Then why go back? Because the people inside are my responsibility. The answer came without hesitation. Not duty. Responsibility. There was a difference. 40 minutes later, the convoy rolled through the iron gates of the Park estate. Rain had finally begun to weaken. Broken security lights scattered across the driveway. Several damaged vehicles remained abandoned near the entrance. The attack had ended. But its scars had not. House staff hurried through the courtyard carrying medical supplies and blankets. Security teams inspected shattered cameras along the perimeter. No one panicked. Everyone worked. Inside the mansion, the atmosphere surprised Naomi. She expected shouting. Chaos. Instead, warm lights filled the entrance hall. Fresh flowers still rested upon polished tables. Someone had already cleaned the broken glass. The house refused to surrender its dignity. An elderly Korean woman slowly descended the staircase. Silver hair. Simple cream-colored sweater. Gentle eyes filled with quiet wisdom. Michael immediately lowered his head. Grandmother. She ignored him at first. Instead, she walked directly toward Naomi. Without asking a single question, she gently placed both hands around Naomi's cold fingers. My dear. Her English carried a soft Korean accent. You must be exhausted. Naomi blinked. I'm fine. The older woman smiled kindly. No. You've simply been brave for too long. Something inside Naomi quietly broke. No one had spoken to her that way since her mother passed away years earlier. She lowered her eyes, afraid the tears gathering there might escape. Mrs. Park looked toward Michael. You brought her home. Yes. You intend to protect her. With my life. The answer came so naturally that even Michael seemed surprised by his own words. The room became completely silent. Mrs. Park gave a slow, approving nod. Then from this moment, she turned back to Naomi. This house is your home until you decide. Otherwise. Naomi looked toward Michael. He said nothing. He simply met her eyes with the same calm expression she had seen on the highway. Except this time. For the first time. She no longer saw a feared mafia boss standing before her. She saw a tired man carrying responsibilities no one else could bear. And somewhere on the second floor, hidden behind a partially closed study door, someone quietly lowered a phone after sending a single encrypted message. The woman has arrived. Proceed to phase 2. Sometimes betrayal doesn't arrive wearing the face of an enemy. Sometimes it serves dinner, smiles politely, and waits inside the home that once felt safest. As dawn slowly broke over the Park estate, Naomi Carter discovered that surviving the outside world had been only the beginning. Soft morning light filtered through tall windows, replacing the violence of the previous night with an almost impossible calm. Birds sang somewhere beyond the gardens, while the scent of freshly brewed tea drifted through the quiet hallways. Naomi stood on the balcony outside her guest room, wrapped in a light cream cardigan Mrs. Park had insisted she wear. For the first time in nearly 2 days. There were no sirens. No gunfire. No rain. Only silence. She almost believed the nightmare had ended. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. Mrs. Park entered carrying a breakfast tray. "You should eat, my dear." Naomi smiled faintly. "You've already done too much for me." The older woman placed the tray on a nearby table. "My grandson forgets that people need kindness as much as protection." Naomi glanced toward the garden below. "He's different from what people say." Mrs. Park followed her gaze. "Michael learned very young that the world respects strength." She paused. "But his mother taught him never to lose compassion." Naomi remained quiet. She remembered the highway. The bridge. The tunnel. Every moment Michael had stepped between her and danger without asking for anything in return. Perhaps the stories about him had never been complete. Downstairs, Michael stood inside the estate's security room studying dozens of surveillance screens. David Lee entered carrying a tablet. "Every employee has been accounted for." Michael didn't look away from the monitors. "Everyone." David hesitated. "Except one." Michael finally turned. "The house electrician. He left 3 hours before the attack. Without authorization." Michael nodded slowly. "He wasn't the traitor." David frowned. "What makes you so certain?" "Because someone wanted us to notice he disappeared." Before David could respond, one security monitor flickered unexpectedly. Only for a second. Long enough. Michael immediately stepped closer. "Freeze that frame." The technician enlarged the image. Naomi appeared walking through the eastern hallway only minutes earlier. Behind her, a maid pushing a linen cart. Nothing unusual. Except Michael recognized the maid instantly. "Who is she?" The technician checked the employee database. "Temporary replacement. Hired last week." Michael's expression hardened. "I never approved any replacement." At that exact moment, upstairs, Naomi thanked Mrs. Park and carried the empty tea tray toward the hallway. The mansion felt strangely peaceful. Fresh flowers decorated every table. Sunlight warmed the polished wooden floors. It was difficult to imagine armed men had stormed the property only hours before. As Naomi rounded the corner, she noticed the same young maid quietly arranging fresh towels near her room. The woman smiled warmly. "Good morning, Mrs. Park." Naomi hesitated. "I'm actually." She stopped correcting people. It no longer seemed important. "Good morning." The maid lowered her eyes respectfully. "I brought fresh towels." "Thank you." Naomi turned to continue walking. Then something caught her attention. The maid's housekeeping cart. Hidden beneath neatly folded white towels. A black leather camera strap. Naomi froze. She recognized it instantly. Her camera. The one Michael had locked inside the estate vault the previous night. It wasn't supposed to be here. The maid noticed Naomi looking. For the briefest moment, her smile disappeared. Neither woman spoke. Then, without warning, the maid shoved the cart toward Naomi with surprising force. Metal crashed across the hallway. The camera bag slid onto the polished floor. Before Naomi could react, the maid reached inside her uniform sleeve and pulled out a compact folding knife. Downstairs, every security alarm inside the mansion activated at once. Michael looked toward the ceiling. His heartbeat stopped for only a fraction of a second. Naomi. He was already running before anyone else understood why. Upstairs, the young maid stepped toward Naomi with cold, emotionless eyes. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I only need the camera." And behind her, the guest room door slowly clicked shut on its own, trapping Naomi alone in the hallway with the assassin. The difference between fear and courage is often measured in a single heartbeat. That morning, as a trained assassin advanced through the hallway with a knife hidden beneath a maid's uniform, Naomi Carter discovered that courage rarely feels like confidence. It feels like refusing to surrender when every instinct tells you to run. The housekeeping cart crashed against the wall. White towels scattered across the polished floor. Naomi instinctively stepped backward as the woman closed the distance with unsettling calm. "I don't want to hurt you," the assassin said quietly. "I only need the camera." Naomi's eyes flickered toward the leather camera bag lying several feet away. "So that's why you came?" The woman nodded once. "Give it to me. And if I don't?" The smile disappeared from the assassin's face. "Then I have no choice." Before Naomi could answer, the woman lunged forward. Naomi reacted purely on instinct. She grabbed the overturned housekeeping cart and shoved it between them. Metal screeched across the hardwood floor. The assassin stumbled just long enough. Naomi ran. Barefoot. Her heartbeat thundered louder than the security alarms echoing throughout the mansion. She turned the corner toward the main staircase. Almost there. Another few steps. Then a figure appeared at the opposite end of the hallway. Michael. His black suit jacket hung open as he sprinted toward her with a speed Naomi had never imagined from someone who always moved with such calm precision. "Naomi." She reached toward him. The assassin recovered. With one desperate movement, she threw the folding knife. Time slowed. Michael saw the blade before Naomi did. Without hesitation, he stepped directly into its path. The knife struck his left shoulder. The impact spun him sideways, but he never stopped moving. He reached Naomi first. His right arm pulled her safely behind him while his injured shoulder absorbed the force of the collision against the hallway wall. Blood slowly spread across the dark fabric of his jacket. Naomi gasped. "Michael." He ignored the pain. His eyes never left the assassin. Security guards flooded into the hallway from every direction. Weapons raised. The assassin calmly lowered her empty hands. "I surrender." David Lee approached cautiously and secured her wrists. "Boss." Michael finally relaxed. "Only slightly." "Take her alive." David looked surprised. "Alive? I have questions." The assassin smiled through the handcuffs. "You'll never get answers." Before anyone could stop her, she bit down hard on something hidden inside her mouth. David lunged forward. Too late. Within seconds, the woman collapsed unconscious. The estate physician rushed in immediately. After a brief examination, he slowly looked toward Michael. "She's alive. For now." "What happened?" "Poison capsule." Michael closed his eyes briefly. "A contingency." Naomi stared at the unconscious woman. "She was willing to die." Michael answered quietly. "Because someone terrified her more than death." Silence settled over the hallway. Mrs. Park hurried upstairs. The moment she saw blood soaking Michael's jacket, her expression changed. "My grandson. I'm all right." "You were stabbed." "It's superficial." She gently touched his uninjured arm. "You always say that." Naomi watched them silently. For the first time, she realized Michael never described his own pain. Only other people's safety. Later that afternoon, the estate physician finished bandaging Michael's shoulder inside the library. "You'll need several stitches." "I'll manage." When the doctor left, Naomi remained standing near the doorway. Neither of them spoke for several seconds. Finally she broke the silence. You didn't even think. Michael looked up. What? You stepped in front of the knife. His answer came almost as though it required no explanation. I was closer. No. She slowly shook her head. You chose to be. Michael looked away toward the rain beginning to fall beyond the library windows. I made one terrible decision at the warehouse. His voice dropped almost to a whisper. I'm not making the same mistake twice. Naomi searched his face. For the first time. She no longer saw the man who had claimed she was his wife. She saw the man quietly trying to earn the right to protect her. Just then, David Lee entered carrying a sealed evidence envelope. Boss. We recovered this from the assassin. Michael opened it carefully. Inside lay a single photograph. Not of Naomi. Not of Chairman Han. It showed Michael himself. Standing beside Naomi on the rain-soaked highway only minutes after they first met. Someone had been watching them from the very beginning. Sometimes the greatest declaration of love is not asking someone to stay. It is opening the door, placing freedom in their hands, and accepting whatever choice they make. Weeks after a stranger on a lonely highway became the center of a hidden war, Michael Park finally reached the only decision that mattered. Nearly 3 months passed. The criminal alliance responsible for hunting Naomi slowly unraveled. The assassin captured inside the Park estate survived long enough to provide fragments of information before entering federal witness protection. Combined with the photograph Naomi had unknowingly taken and evidence quietly delivered through anonymous channels, several long-protected criminal networks collapsed one after another. Chairman Han disappeared. No body was ever found. Some believed he escaped overseas. Others believed his own allies erased him before he could speak. Michael never searched for the answer. Some ghosts belonged in the past. Life inside the Park estate gradually returned to something resembling peace. Children from the neighborhood community center once again filled the gardens with laughter every Saturday morning. Mrs. Park prepared homemade lunches while Michael quietly repaired broken bicycles and assembled wooden bookshelves for the library he had funded years earlier. Naomi watched him from beneath the old maple tree. He never announced his generosity. He simply showed up. Again. And again. The man feared throughout Chicago looked happiest when no one noticed him. One quiet afternoon, Michael asked Naomi to meet him inside the estate library. Warm autumn sunlight spilled across polished wooden shelves lined with worn books collected by 3 generations of the Park family. A single envelope rested on the table. Michael gently pushed it toward her. It's time. Naomi opened it. Inside were her passport. Her driver's license. Her restored camera. A certified statement clearing her identity. A plane ticket to New York. And one final document. The temporary identity papers bearing the name Naomi Park had been officially cancelled. She looked up slowly. What is this? You don't need my name anymore. His voice remained calm. No one is hunting you. No one will follow you. You're free. Silence settled softly between them. Michael reached into his jacket and removed the wedding band he had worn only to make the deception believable. He placed it beside the documents. It was never supposed to become real. Naomi studied him carefully. His expression revealed neither hope nor disappointment. Only acceptance. You promised you'd give my life back. He nodded once. I'm keeping that promise. She smiled faintly. You've changed. So have you. Michael looked toward the library window where golden leaves drifted across the garden. When I found you on that highway. He paused. I believed protecting you was another responsibility. His voice grew quieter. Somewhere along the way. It became a privilege. Naomi lowered her eyes. For several moments, neither of them spoke. Then she quietly picked up the plane ticket. She looked at it. Folded it once. Twice. Then carefully tore it in half. The pieces floated gently onto the polished floor. Michael blinked in surprise. "You'll miss your flight." She stepped closer. "I wasn't planning to take it." He searched her face, as though afraid he had misunderstood. "You said I was free." "You are." "Then this is my decision." Naomi reached for the wedding band resting on the table. Instead of handing it back, she gently slipped it into Michael's palm and closed his fingers around it. "The first time you called me your wife." She smiled through quiet tears. "You were trying to save my life." She took his hand. "The second time. I'd like it to be because we both choose it." Outside, Mrs. Park watched from the garden window with a knowing smile before quietly walking away, giving them the privacy neither had ever expected to find. Michael intertwined his fingers with Naomi's, not as a man claiming ownership, but as someone finally trusted enough to hold another person's future with care. On a rain-soaked highway, destiny had spoken through fear. Inside a sunlit library, it answered through choice. Because power can demand obedience. Only humility deserves love. And on that day, Michael Park discovered that the greatest victory was never building an empire. It was becoming the kind of man someone freely chose to come home to.